Here's my take on sin. I have this rag on my head. It's a wet rag. I get hot all the time. I need to cool down. Okay. I took a shower earlier. Sometimes my skin's always red because of my blood pressure. Watch this. Look. Always, always. I could write Yahweh right here. But here's my take on sin. Okay. When the first sin was committed, right? Adam and Eve covered themselves. But before that sin was committed, they did not need to cover themselves. When sin was committed, it is my opinion, okay? Remember, opinions are like noses. Everyone has one. So don't get angry at me, okay? But this is truly my opinion. When the first sin was committed, flesh was manifest. That is why there's diseases, cancers, mental illness, and all the like. Because this is manifest from sin. In the Garden of Eden, that's why they went about covering themselves with the fig leaves, not only for the shame, but there was parts showing that, just naturally, that's why we wear clothes. Is it not inappropriate to walk around naked? I mean, come on. It is my full opinion that flesh was manifest from sin. If flesh wasn't sin, then we probably wouldn't have diseases, cancers, mental illnesses, because if flesh wasn't sin, then it would be righteousness, and surely to God, no disease lies within righteousness. No cancers, no ailments, no mental diseases. Now, when the belief of a believer comes in, when you fully understand and complete understanding, not only in this mind, but this mind in your heart. When you completely and totally understand the meaning of your prayers and you fully mean them, then that is a correct prayer. Now, when a believer prays for someone to be healed and they fully 100% believe in Jesus' ability to do that exact thing they're praying for and they're confident in it, and they don't sit there and say, man, I hope it'll happen. I hope it happens. You have to know it'll happen. That's when it happens, because you're believing in Jesus in his full essence and his abilities. God can't move in the life of an unbeliever. Granted, there's a lot of unbelievers these days, and it's because of the pain we've all gone through with COVID. There's been so much death and suffering, and a lot of people blame God for the hard things they go through, and we're the ones who sinned, not him. We're the ones who used our free will to sin, okay? It is my full belief that sin is flesh. That is why when God came to us, he took all sin upon himself in the form of Jesus Christ, who was in the flesh, who became the entire Torah fulfilled and defeated sin entirely, as God knew that this world surely would kill him, as it was a world of sin. So as he knew this world would crucify him, as a loving father, knowing his own children would still kill him and reject him in his hometown, Jerusalem, especially even his own family. His own brethren didn't believe him. Jesus said, my own brethren didn't believe me. Do you know what that feels like, to have your own family reject you? Especially when good Lord, can you imagine being God? What? It's hard enough when you find God and your whole family thinks you crazy. Come on. Let's not act like that wouldn't be a horrible thing to experience. Let's not pretend, okay? Really. This flesh became manifest in that Garden of Eden when the first sin was committed. It is my full opinion that we were just pure spirit before sin. Look at all the diseases and viruses and cancers and mental illnesses, and good God, is it hard? It's hard. So hard. And we are sitting ducks without Christ. Without Christ, we are sitting ducks. We really are. And that's just truly my belief. I mean, of course I could be wrong, and of course I could figure it out later on, but I'm telling you right now, from what I've learned from God, as I choose to hear from God directly rather than man, God knows that I can't trust man or his words. I can't unless God himself validates it to me. I have post-traumatic stress disorder and hypervigilance because of the trauma I've gone through. I was held captive, tortured, raped, sodomized, beaten, burned for 5 days. I can't trust any human's words just because they tell me I should. I mean, neither should anybody else, regardless of if they've gone through trauma. I mean, what? Don't. I mean, that's insane. And it's naive. You can't just trust someone and what they say just because they say you should, you know? That's not only is that dangerous, but that's dangerous. All jokes aside, that's scary dangerous. You should not do that. And I know there's a lot of people who don't believe in God because the hell they've gone through, and they think, if God was real and he's a loving God, why is all this bad stuff happening? It's happening because of sin. Sin is why this is happening to us. And only when you take Christ upon yourself are you free from that bondage. And I know how hard it can be to believe in God, especially these days. Did God not say in the last days the love of many would wax cold? He told us what would happen. Literally, Revelations. I mean, all of these things that we were told would happen in the last days, they're happening now, and they've been happening. This is a big picture. It is not just 2020, 2021, 2022, and onward. No, this is a massive picture. Massive. And it's been happening ever since the first sin was committed. Ever since the first sin was committed, God sought about saving us from the sin we committed. Yes. Because a loving father does not just sit there and look at the mistakes his kids make and say, forget them. They'll have to figure it out on their own. They did it, figured it out. No, figure it out on their own. I don't care. They'll have to fix it themselves. I don't think so. A loving father, especially God, the creator of all existence, who has full power to save us, of course he's going to save us. That's what love is. And God is the only one who can save us. It's one thing to be God and do what's necessary to save your children. We can't just go around being reckless and thinking we're God. We can't do God's work. Well, we can do God's work, and we can help the gospel be spread. But, we can't do what God can do, is what I'm saying. We are not God. We are not God. But God is God. But that's just my opinion, I do think that sin is flesh. It completely makes sense. It really does. And I know a lot of people hold men superior to women, but a loving father would not love one child more than the other or hold one child above the other. We are all made in the image of God, men and women alike, because God is not male or female. He is both, but neither. Eve came from the rib of Adam. Okay? Before sin was even committed, we already had some kind of spiritual image before flesh was upon us. Right? The rib is by the heart. Eve came from a place very close to the heart. Not only that, but the spiritual place that was by the heart before sin. And women give life by the womb within, as God breathes that life into the baby in the womb. So whatever spiritual essence of females that started with Eve, something within us is life-giving. Jesus was born from a woman, born under the law, right? I mean, was Jesus not the law manifest, is what I'm saying. So, it's food for thought. It just makes perfect sense. Sin is not righteous, and flesh is 100% evil. Jesus took all sin upon himself. Well, looky there. What happened when Adam and Eve sinned? Oh, here comes flesh. Here comes all this, I mean, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm serious. It just makes sense to me. You know, of course I could be wrong. I'm not insinuating I'm right, but I will follow what makes sense, especially when I'm going to follow God and what he says before I ever follow the word of man. Of what account is man when he only has but a breath in his nostrils? Can you imagine that? Our entire souls and the entire intricacy therein of our emotions and how we feel and the love we feel is just a small breath that God breathed into us. So imagine the massive almightiness of God as an entirety. It's beautiful. And if you have any doubts about God, I mean, stop running to your local pastor, because I promise you, if you have doubts about God, it's probably because you have doubts about the trust you have in human beings rather than God. Give God the chance to talk to you directly to your heart. And keep this in mind. The way that you think God should answer you, or the way that you think God would answer you, is probably not the way God would answer you. God knows how he should answer you. And God knows the best way to manifest an answer to you. God knows what would resonate with your heart and soul better than you do. And I'm not saying that because God is some egocentric person. Ego doesn't exist in God. Ego is poison, and it will shrink your brain. I'm not a scientist, but it's common sense. Ego coincides with narcissism. Narcissism is literally the picture of Satan. It is my full belief that Satan manifests within narcissism. That just makes sense. What is the story of Satan and how he acts and treats people? Look at narcissism. Look at all the stuff that flesh brings about in life. Cancers, diseases, medical illnesses, anxiety, stress, high blood pressure, death. The flesh dies. So where do you think sin went? To death. That's why sin dies, but your soul does not. Because God does not die, but sin has been defeated. That's why your soul does not die. But your flesh will decay and rot. So, for instance, those who base all their decisions upon what somebody looks like, that's just stupid. That's dumb. It's a lack of intelligence, and it's limiting yourself to nothingness. Temporary nothingness. It's just not. You deserve better. You deserve knowledge that is food for your soul. And only through Christ can you find that. Jesus wants all races to unite in love. He does not have a favorite. He does not play favorites like some narcissistic parent. Absolutely not. And the only kind of parent or God that would play favorites is a false god. That's not a god at all, but a demon. Yeah. We are all made in the image of God. God is male, and, well, God is not. God is both, but neither. He is a multi-dimensional being, okay? There's levels to this understanding. You have to take baby steps. I promise you, you'll get there. I don't know everything. I'm not a genius. I'm pacing back and forth with a wet rag on my head because I'm hot. I have high blood pressure. I'm not even 30 yet. I'm not a genius. But, I mean, just think about it. God took sin upon himself. Sin is 100% evil. Or flesh is 100% evil. Jesus had flesh upon himself, but was God. Was fully man, but fully God. I mean, come on. Only when you take Jesus upon yourself are you not trapped by the boundaries of this stuff. God bless you, and Maranatha.